G'day everybody, how are you going today? It is so good to see you. I do hope you are super well and warmer than I am today. Yes, by some people's measure, it's not cold. It's probably about 10 degrees and maybe 5 degrees centigrade with the wind chill factor, which is extreme today. But it's cold for us here in Melbourne, where we get highs between 9, 10 degrees and 45 degrees. So we get the heat as well. But today I'm not here to talk about the weather. Today I want to talk about a statement made by the CEO of the Sony Semiconductor department, and he has made the statement that mobile phone cameras will be better than DSLRs by 2024. That's super close. Now this is a really interesting statement to me because DSLRs, the final DSLRs that we are seeing are cameras like the D850, the D780, and they are pretty capable cameras. So what I want to do in this episode is I want to unpack what is the Sony CEO talking about there. What's he trying to tell us? What does it actually mean? Or is it just marketing hype? Because, you know, that's part of his job. Now, Terushi Shimizu is the president and CEO of the Sony Semiconductor unit, and he is making the statement, I think still images will exceed the image quality of single lens cameras. Now, what is this all about? Ultimately, we've got technology here that continues to improve in cell phones, in mobile phone cameras. And obviously, it's an absolutely massive market, ridiculously larger than the camera industry market, the detachable lens camera industry market. It is predicted that the camera industry market will sell something like 5 million units in the coming year, whereas cell phones sell in the hundreds of millions. So clearly, if you're a manufacturer of sensors, you're going to focus where your largest market is. Cell phones have 2, 3, perhaps even as many as 4 cameras within them. This makes it a massive market. Now, obviously those sensors are cheaper, but that is where you're going to focus your efforts and your technology. And this is Sony. They are one of the largest manufacturers of sensors for this market. So is the president / CEO, is this just marketing hype to say this? Or is there some truth in this, that cell phones will actually exceed DSLRs? Well, let's just unpack that statement for a second. Cell phones versus DSLRs. Well, a DSLR is not a mirrorless camera. And taking the mirror out of a camera, but also taking the shutter out of a camera, gives it a whole lot of potential that a DSLR just simply cannot do, because it needs to get the mirror out of the way and it needs to get the shutter out of the way. So perhaps when this statement is made, it's partially about sensors, but it's also a hell of a lot about technology and about computational photography. So we can see from that statement that certainly Sony expects the computational side to be a big part of it. This is a big statement, and if I was Canon or Nikon or Fuji or Leica or Panasonic or Olympus, I'd be saying, well, you know, there is potential for even more and more erosion of our market. And I kind of get the sense that they are preparing for that highly reduced market. They are not expecting to sell particularly high numbers of cameras, and really their expectations are pretty low, and they seem to be chilled about it.
And as recently as Nikon IR Day 2022, the medium-term management plan, which was released on May 26, 2022, Nikon are talking about this very subject. And I want to jump down here to the imaging units plans as outlined in this Nikon document. And we can see here they fully acknowledge that the DCIL market is shrinking as the replacement of entry models for recording purposes with smartphones is progressing. However, greater demand for video expression, growing market for mid-high-end models for pro and hobbyists. Now, they are assuming by 2025 that the market will be at 3 million units. We can see that between 2021 and 2025, they're expecting really pretty much the majority of their 700,000 units that they will be selling of that 3 million units. Obviously, the rest is made up by Sony, Fuji, Canon, and so on, will be the mid to high-end models. This is Nikon's own document that came out just a few weeks ago. And if we have a look here at these bullet points, the number of use on Instagram has nearly doubled over the past 6 years. Consumers in their 20s or younger increasingly motivated to purchase DCIL for better pictures than a smartphone, and use on social media. And finally, the number of users motivated by video shooting has more than tripled over the past 6 years. So this really has changed the landscape for Nikon. And here it is written out in bullet points that the market is being taken over by smartphones. And we can see here, however, in addition to the steady growth of the past 10 years in the market for mid to high-end models, we have seen an influx of young people and users who want to shoot videos in recent years. And Nikon are expecting the market for mid high-end mirrorless cameras to remain stable at 3 million units toward FY 2025. It looks to me that Nikon are being very realistic about what they think the camera world is going to look like in the years to come.
And look, that's what I would do. I would make my business the size of what I expect to be the industry over the next 10 years, not over just the next 2 or 3 years. So what does this statement mean? Where does it fit? Well, I think there's some truth that sensors will continue to improve, and there is some technology they talk about in here about getting even more light. Physics tells us that a tiny sensor is never ever going to be as good as a large sensor, and nor is a small piece of glass ever going to be as good as a big piece of glass. I think there's some truth here. I also think there's some marketing here. I also think there's some AI here. But at the end of the day, most people don't want to be carrying around big cameras. And, well, why should you if you don't need to? There are rumors of periscope zooms coming within mobile phones, cell phones, soon enough. So we may well have good long optical zooms also coming pretty soon. Will cell phones exceed DSLRs by 2024? Well, they will in many ways. Perhaps just raw sensor for raw sensor. I doubt it.
And when we take into account high ISO and low light situations, when we take into account wanting exotic lenses, and when we want to take into account very large files, these are some of the areas that mobile phones and cell phones will still be at a disadvantage. And mirrorless cameras are starting to add that computational technology that we've seen in phones for quite some time. So perhaps camera manufacturers will be playing some catch up and closing the gap between cell phones, mobile phones, and cameras. It's an interesting struggle.
I want to end this by saying that photography for me is about so many different things, and a big part of photography is the process. It's about the equipment, it's about the ergonomics, it's about the tactility of it. I like having a camera in my hand. I like putting this little rectangle up to my eye and being able to black out the rest of the world and edit and frame on the fly. That's a big part of the joy for me. Just like records are becoming popular again, people want to drop a needle. I do want to be able to change lenses and have all sorts of interesting and exotic lenses. So look, I think this statement works for the mass market. Yes, mobile phones, cell phones will just continue to get better and better and better, and they will be. Sensor-wise, just raw sensor for sensor, I don't think they'll ever be better. If you put all the computational stuff and everything else they want to do together, for the majority of human beings, of which there are billions of us, billions and billions of us, it'll be more than enough. And it will appear to be better. But for those of us that love the art and the craft and the process, the journey of photography, those 5 million of us that buy a new camera every year at the moment, it's not better. We actually love what we do. We love the journey. We love the tactility. So don't get too worried about it. There are still going to be companies out there that are going to look after us. I personally believe that Nikon, for example, are gearing themselves in that direction for a small market. I do think all of these companies need to be prepared for a not ever shrinking, but I think there might be a little bit more shrinkage in there. Who knows? Might depend a little bit on what the world does as well. All right, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think your cell phone, your mobile phone, will replace your camera? I'd love to hear your thoughts. It's been so good to see you. If this is your first time here, I'd love to see you again. So please do subscribe, please share, and please like. And I'll see you soon.